It's not lined up.
Could everybody please find a seat, please?
God damn it.
There was one lady here who was older that had a bad back, and you can get dry cloths, and she would stand half a day.
Jesus Christ. Can you wait? Judge, can you wait? Can you have him wait 1 second? We're having a technical difficulty here. Nothing.
So you go to the next page. Is that it?
Yeah. Okay. If that's going to happen, if we're going to switch this out, then I'm not going to switch the other one out. Is it going to happen or not?
You want to try it right now?
No, we've got the jury coming in. But I can't do. I mean, I need to know that it's going to. We're going to be able to do it or not. If we're not going to be able to do it, I don't want to screw this up. Okay. Yeah, my screen's still up. Are we ready? Just 1 second.
Another minute or so.
1 minute. Okay. Okay. All right. We're ready.
Court is again in session. Mr. President, Mr. Barnett, you may resume.
Okay, so after the attack on his granddad, he pleads guilty and he becomes a dangerous, violent felon. Now this is the guy who, Mr. Caucus says, this guy's just like a nuisance. You know, these guys are just dealing with a nuisance. He's not just a nuisance. He's dangerous. Then on December 19th of 2004, at the Alano Center, he punches Dale Roberts. Again, no reason for this action, no cause for this action, no good reason for the action, just really violence, an explosion, spontaneous violence, just like with Granddad, just for no reason. Will you please leave? Bang. With Granddad, just nothing, just talking, and he just starts getting beat. So then we're at Starbucks, and he's in the bathroom naked. And he's threatening people, okay? No reason to threaten the people there, but he's doing that. And you can see a pattern of violence, what we have, over time. Again, no reason to be doing that. And they can't really have him in the Starbucks naked threatening people. Then we have the fruit stand. Remember the little, well, the young woman, Miss Pepin, Samantha Pepin, she came in and talked to you about her experience with Kelly Thomas. She's still shaking now. Still now. This was 3 years ago. Kelly Thomas, she wants him away from her fruit stand. So he leaves. This is a little girl. This is just a little girl who's just trying to make a living on this fruit stand. And Kelly Thomas starts throwing rocks at her. Rocks at her. And then he takes a pipe and he says, I'm going to kill you. And luckily there's another guy there who they sort of chase him away. And she says, and you watched her, he terrorized her for 3 years. She tried to get the cops to do something and they wouldn't do it. How bad was it? She kept a machete. That little girl kept a machete and a can of mace to keep her safe from Kelly Thomas. Because the cops wouldn't do anything. He went across the street to the McDonald's. The cops get him and she's got to make a citizen's arrest. That's not right. That's not right. And it shows you who they dealt with. Cole's parking lot. Fullerton PD, and you've got the printout. Fullerton PD gets a call from the parking lot. 2 security guards are having trouble with somebody. A lot of trouble with the homeless guy. He's so violent, they got to cuff him. These individual security guards, they got to cuff him, and they got him in the back seat of their car. What are we going to do with him? The homeless person, Kelly Thomas. The responding officer, Ramos. Another instance. Then on December 27th, just after Christmas, he grabs his own mother by the throat. She says, she screams, let go, let go. He won't let go. 2 days after Christmas, he won't let go. And so, she has to do what? By the way, what happens when Kelly Thomas is doing this violence? What happens? Who gets called? Who has to go out and deal with Kelly Thomas? Who gets called? The police. They call the police. and expect that they will go out and handle this situation. Again, there's no reason for him to be grabbing his own mom by the throat. There's a reason that he's not. There's a reason that he's homeless, and that's one of them. That's another one. This is the real Kelly Thomas. This is more than a nuisance. This is the man that these two charged police officers were dealing with. None of these victims could have predicted what Kelly Thomas's behavior was going to be next. None of these, not Samantha Pippin, not Dale Roberts, not his granddad, not his mom, nobody, including these police officers, could have predicted what his next move was. No one knew from one minute to the next whether he would do something violent, do something crazy. The evidence told you about Kelly Thomas, and it also told you about Manny Ramos. It showed you that he's not some bully cop harassing homeless people for fun. It showed you he's not some bully cop who just murdered Kelly Thomas. It showed you not only did he not murder Kelly Thomas, he didn't kill him. The evidence showed he was simply a good cop, a peace officer who had lots of contacts with homeless people. And one of those contacts was Kelly Thomas. Kelly Thomas on July 5th, 2011. Manny Ramos had many contacts with homeless people. He just didn't remember their names. He could recognize them, but he didn't put a name to a face. And so every time he was talking to them, he had to identify them. That's part of his job. He needed to be sure who he was talking to, what they were doing. And so when he did this, he utilized a strategy, a verbal strategy. The prosecutor said, well, this was no verbal strategy. Well, sure it was. And his own expert said it was, so I don't know why Mr. Rokakis is saying it's not a verbal strategy. It's not, when it is. There isn't any question about that. Well, I do know why. And you know why. Because Officer Ramos had a pattern and a practice of successfully using this verbal strategy. So, what were the contacts that he had with Kelly Thomas coming up to July 5th, 2011? And mind you, the prosecutor said he Manny, lay hands on Kelly Thomas. He wanted to punish him. He wanted to harass him. He's harassing him. Well, let's look at these contacts, okay, between those two men and see if what the prosecutor said and argued is supported by the evidence. That he was harassing Kelly Thomas. That he wanted to punish Kelly Thomas. He's a harasser of the homeless. Let's see. On January 20th, 2009, it's the one we just talked about. The responding officer, Ramos. Kelly Thomas is threatening people. He's naked. What does he do? Beat him up? Grab him? Harass him? No. None of those things. He uses a verbal strategy, and it works. These people want him gone. So what does he say? I need your name. And then he tells him, look, I'm trying to help you. And you saw these sort of the guidelines and stuff. I'm going to get to that. What does he do? I'm trying to help you. He tells him, look, if you come back, you're going to jail, but that's enough to get him to do it. This is the guy this is your harasser. Harasser of the homeless. Harasser of Kelly Thomas. He has to do something. And he does something. Without violence, without any physical confrontation at all. He's got to control that behavior. He's got to get him to do something, right? He's got to get him out of there, right? He got called. Mr. Caucus didn't get called. Hey, could you get this naked guy out of the bathroom who's harassing my customers? He didn't get called. He doesn't have to respond with a Sam Brown belt, a uniform, and deal with that. All right. That strategy worked on that date with Kelly. On the 23rd of February, he gets another call. Okay? He's trespassing, something. He's got to be moved. Okay? He's got to move. What's your name? And then they go through this thing about the Army. Kelly's talking about being in the Army. They're bantering back and forth. Kelly's playing like I don't understand because he doesn't want to leave. But okay. Okay. I was in the Army. I get my government checks from Knott's Berry Farm. Go to the nearest recruiter. He's talking Kelly Thomas's language. He's using the same language. He's buying into this story, this lie, this baloney. Why? Because he thinks maybe I can avoid a confrontation. Maybe I can not have to arrest this soul. Let's just... And you know what? It works. The strategy is not to beat him up, cuff him up, even to give him a ticket. He lets him go. He knows. It worked. He says, if you bother the people, you're going to go to jail. That's a threat, right? That's a conditional threat. If you do this, then this will happen. Okay? They're talking the same language. Manuel Ramos gets the most desired result. Then, on the 6th, again they're called. What's your name? Again, he doesn't know. He recognizes Kelly, but he doesn't know. Put a name. He's seen a lot of people out on the job. So what's your last name? This is common in every one. It's not harassment. It's not like I know who you are, I'm just harassing you. It's not that. The prosecutor says that because he knows what this means. This means that Officer Ramos has been doing everything that he can do to resolve his contacts with everybody, to include Kelly Thomas, not only nonviolently, but without taking him to jail, without cuffing him up. Okay, so he says next time you're going to get a ticket. So it works. Then we have this incident on July 6th of 09. And he asks him his last name. And they're talking back and forth. And this has play. This has meaning. This has importance and significance when you looked at what the prosecutor said, put up there about how do you treat people who might have a mental disorder, and that Kelly Thomas clearly had a mental disorder, and all the stuff you're supposed to do. Well, look what he's doing. He's asking him. He's saying, how come you're staying here, you know, and you're supposed to be moving and pick up your stuff, and he doesn't want to do it and all that. So he asks him, do you have a mental disorder? Now, he's not a psychologist, but he's talking to him. What does he tell him? He doesn't say, little green men are jumping inside my head. He says, my problem? Alcoholism. Kelly doesn't want to leave this area. He's got to leave. And so they have this banter, and then Officer Ramos tells him, and it's true, and this is something that you can look, when the prosecutor said, well, he knew he was mentally ill and he should have done something else. I'm going to get to that, but he says, you're not as dumb as you pretend to be. Not as dumb and disabled. And then there is the reference to a baton. Now remember, and that's like this. That threat, you see this, have you ever been hit before? Remember that? That's there. Wilson, their expert said that was reasonable. Okay, this is reasonable. Threatening him with this baton. That's reasonable. And it works. Now, a confrontation was avoided, and I want to just read you, and just bear with me. I'm not putting it up on the screen, but this shows that a threat, the DA's expert who's going to say later that this threat with the fist was unreasonable, he says the threat with the baton was reasonable. And I just want to read it, and you can have the transcript read back. But here's the question. Kelly Thomas refused. Then he, meaning Ramos, threatened him with arrest or with his baton, and right after that he got compliance. Answer, correct. I don't see a problem with that. That's Wilson. Question. So the fact that he referred to using physical force, the baton, that was okay in the earlier encounter because of the way it was expressed. It was reasonable. That's their expert saying the threat of the baton was reasonable. And then we had a little break. You remember that? Because he said, well, I want to listen to that again. I want to look and see whether, I want to review that contact again. Okay, so we took a break. Okay, he looked at it. Okay, so then here's the questioning and answer. And this becomes important because of the comparison between a reasonable threat to hit him with the baton and the unreasonable threat to hit him with his fist. So the question is, Officer Ramos was trying to get Kelly Thomas to move all his stuff out of a particular area. Right? Answer, correct. And that was accomplished. Answer, correct. And there wasn't any physical violence. Answer, correct. And that would be like a successful encounter. Right? It would be a nonviolent resolution. He's hedging. He knows where this is going now, but there's no way out for him. Question, which is what the most preferred result is, right? Correct. Question. And it would also have informed Officer Ramos that that tactic worked. The threat, words, not deeds, words were sufficient to control the behavior of Kelly Thomas. And the answer was he should draw that conclusion. He should draw the conclusion that that tactic worked in that situation. Correct. So then on the 26th, I didn't put it up there, but this is at a 7-Eleven. Officer Ramos asked him, well, why are you homeless? Why are you homeless? And again, Kelly Thomas understands the question. He understands English. He understands the words. He doesn't respond in word salad. He knows. And he knows why he's homeless. He says, because I'm drinking again. Now this is sort of interesting because the prosecutor put all this stuff about mental health and not dealing with a mentally challenged person and all that other stuff, and that he didn't do what he was supposed to do per the Fullerton Police Manual. But yet, what is he doing? He's asking him what the problem is. And what is Kelly Thomas responding? His response is, I'm a drinker. Officer Raymond says, why don't you live at your grandma's house? You know, they're still talking about this homeless thing. First, in the previous contact, they're talking about whether or not he's got a mental disorder, whether he's an alcoholic or what, whether he can speak English. Now he's saying, well, why don't you just go to your grandma's house over on such and such a street? She doesn't want me there. No kidding. He doesn't tell, I mean, Kelly Thomas doesn't say, well, she doesn't want me there because I strangled her, and she doesn't want me there because I hit her old man over the head with a poker. He just says, she doesn't want me there. Here's your murderer. Here's your homeless harasser. Here's your guy who wants to put hands on Kelly Thomas. Please leave, okay? I mean, seriously? That's who he is. We know who Kelly Thomas is. That's who he is. So then in Cole's parking lot. This is remember when he gets called there because the security guards have him, Kelly Thomas, cuffed, and in the back seat of the car. And this is really interesting because the prosecution put up some of those quotes saying that this is how Manny Ramos knows that he's mentally ill, because he says this guy's mentally ill. That's not all he said, though. And that's not why he said it. He said, look, we could take him to like this mentally ill court, or he's mentally ill, or he's not all there. Physically, he's okay. He could go to homeless court. I could take him to jail, you know. But he's mentally ill. Why does he do it? Why does he say that? This is the guy who's out to get Kelly Thomas, who wants to put hands on him on July 5th, who is harassing people. He wants to let him go. You can hear it in the tape. There's a click. He is uncuffing Kelly Thomas, uncuffing him, taking him out of the police car, out of the security guard's car and letting him go. That's your murderer. That's your harasser. That's your guy who wants to lay hands on Kelly Thomas, and he's saying, look, this guy's got a problem. Let's just let him go. It's not because he thought he had a mental disorder. He's making peace with these guys at Cole who have already wrestled him into custody, and they want something done. They got the cops out there. They've got to do enough to get him into cuffs and into their car, and he's got to have... He could just run him into jail, right? That's the easy thing to do. Give him a couple of punches on the way in, right? He makes an excuse, and the prosecutor says, well, that shows he's mentally ill. He knows he's mentally ill. It doesn't. What it shows, he knows he's not. He believes he's not. He says he is. Why? To get him out of cuffs. He just lets him go. That's the mentally ill part. It's accurate that he said he's mentally ill, but to argue it that way is, you know, actually, that's sort of wrong, you know. Okay, so then on the 25th of August, Kelly Thomas is sleeping near an electrical box. He's going to get killed. Listen to him. He's obstinate. He wants to go back there. He wants to, do this, do that. Mr. Cocker says, well, he's having trouble following directions. He's not having trouble following directions. He's doing what he wants to do. But Officer Ramos, again, avoids a confrontation. There's other citizens there, the people who own the property, who are afraid that there's going to be an electrocution. Just like, well, not just like the Kohl's parking lot, who he almost got run over. He's laying in the parking lot. So, again, there is a strategy that's employed. And that strategy is words, not physical force. Words. Whatever those words are, whether they're a threat to use a baton or whether it's a threat to take him to jail, words worked. Words worked. All right. That takes us to July 5th, 2011. And on that day, Manny Ramos is on patrol, as he has been for 10 years. And he gets a call. There's a guy trying to break into cars at the transportation center. He not only has the right, but he's got the duty, he's got the responsibility. He rolls up on the call. And he's got to find out what the suspect is doing, what the person is doing. And he initiates contact with Kelly Thomas. And he tells him, the prosecutor put this stuff up. Well, he didn't tell him he was going to arrest him. He didn't tell him. He told him, look, you're being detained. He didn't say detained. He didn't use that legal term of art, but he says, we're stopping you and we're talking to you. Why? On account of there's been, somebody says you're breaking into cars. He asked him for his name as he did all of these other times. This time, Kelly Thomas is uncooperative. Will not answer him, will not give him his name, say I gave up, and says I gave up on it. Officer Ramos knows he's had contact with the guy before. He's had contact with him. He just can't place a name with the face. He's trying to do that. And he's doing it all during the beginning of the tape, where they're having this contact. And he's leaning back and he says this and that. And he's saying, here's your harasser. He's just mad at Kelly Thomas. He just wants to put hands on him. He's saying, come on, man. I don't want to take you to jail. Just give me your name and we're all going to go home, right? That's what they intend to do. They don't intend to harass this guy. They want to get on with their work, with their night, but they got to do this, right? The prosecutor said, well, why didn't they just, let him go and maybe they'll run into him again? But that's like a bad idea, isn't it? Like a really bad idea. They might run into him again. They don't know his name. Maybe it'd be a good idea to get his name and his birthday. The prosecutor said, well, that's sort of unprofessional. They're being unprofessional there. Kelly Thomas says, I forgot my name. Then for some reason, on this night, not like on all those nights, on this night he starts using the F word, Kelly Thomas. And he's aggressive. He's verbally aggressive, and, which should be a clue to peace officers, now he's being uncooperative, and now everything is F. He won't give his name, and everything is F. Unlike all these other confrontations, contacts, which all ended with no physical contact at all. All these others, they ended one way. On this night, Kelly Thomas is agitated. You were effing here 5 minutes ago. It's a effing hobby. I'm done effing having this conversation. Well, no, you're not. You're lawfully detained. You give us the information or you go into jail. Officer Amos had a right to be doing exactly what he was doing. Even after all that, just tell us your name. Tell us your birthday. We're all going to go home. And the other officer says, Wolf says, yeah, you can go to sleep. We'll all just, they're not harassing this guy. But they got to find out exactly who he is. And there's different names. And Kelly Thomas comes up and then no and then yes. They're not being professional. Then he says, I don't speak English, dude. And they go through this. He's playing them off. Ramos is playing them off. Well, we speak 10 languages. He's not harassing the guy. At some point, the prosecutor, and I think the Wilson says, well, he didn't take the opportunity to establish a rapport. A rapport. Are you joking me? The prosecutor says, well, he should have taken that opportunity when he started to talk this way to say this. Seriously? They're in the street. They're conducting an interview. Let's just establish this rapport. I'm going to talk about Wilson in a few minutes, but the prosecutor bought into that too. Well, he should have taken that opportunity to have his question go a different way. And what he did was unprofessional. That's nonsense. It's ridiculous. And to sort of suggest that that unprofessionalism was then negligent, and then we're going to get to this negligent homicide, which makes it manslaughter, or maybe, well, makes it manslaughter. He's negligent. He's so negligent. What's his negligence? Well, he didn't take the right opportunity. That you know, during this interview. All right, so when, can you cue that up? We're going to try something. I'm not audio-visual guy, and I'm afraid it's going to not work, but I'm going to see if it can. Could you just play it at real speed? Just. Okay, you can stop. Okay, so what you see here is Officer Ramos has made this quote threat. I'm going to talk about that in a second. And what he's telling him to do is put his hands on his knees. Put your hands on your knees. Put your fucking hands on your knees. And what does Kelly Thomas do? He takes his hands off his knees and he moves them forward towards Officer Ramos. Could you play that back, please? You can see him pointing right there. And there, stop it, right there. You can see that Officer Ramos has given him an order, a lawful order. And he's pointing to where his hands should be. But the hands aren't there. That's when Officer Ramos takes his hand and tries to push Kelly Thomas's hand back towards his knee. Okay, can I get back to mine now? Thanks. That wasn't an arrest. That was maintaining security during a lawful detention, a detention which Kelly Thomas well knew the reason for. All right, so in this, in the middle of this discussion, when Kelly Thomas is on the pavement, and by the way, the prosecutor said, well, he didn't want to sit down there, or it's an inconvenient place to sit, or he's being vulnerable, or he's in a vulnerable position, something like that. He doesn't have a choice. Well, we have that most terrible of sounds. When, you just let me know when I'm able to talk, right? When Officer Ramos tells him to put his hand back down and tries to guide his hand back down, we're not now talking about a receiving stolen property or car burglaries or finding mail that turns out not to be a crime. That's not what we're talking about anymore. It doesn't matter why he was detained. Officer Ramos has the authority and the right and the responsibility to maintain control over that situation, and when the suspect, Kelly Thomas, will not comply, will not put his hands down there, that creates a danger, and that affects officer safety. Now, Kelly Thomas is required by law to submit in this circumstance. It doesn't matter whether he was guilty or not guilty. What matters is there was probable cause for detention. Nobody says that's not so. He's got to submit, and he didn't. And it's not like, well, I don't understand.